On my spring break in 2014, just 2 years ago, I went to Russia. And it was a marvelous experience. And I want to share with you some of those experiences. But one of the things that I learned very quickly in being there is a belief that I hold very deeply. And that is that we're more alike than different. And I found that out quickly from being in Russia. And I have some examples that I want to share with you to explain that further. On March 15th, 2014, I arrived in Moscow. And it's a vibrant, alive city of over 13 million people. And I had the pleasure of touring the city. And I saw the marvelous churches, the Russian Orthodox churches. I saw museums. I saw the Red Square. I saw Lenin's tomb. I saw just amazing amount of beauty and other things that were very impressive. But the thing that impressed me the most was seeing two peaceful demonstrations occurring on Red Square that beautiful Saturday morning. And I said to the tour guide, what are they protesting or what are they demonstrating about? And he said, look at their flags. And so I did look at their flags as we approached closer. And the larger group of over hundreds of people, they had white, red, and blue flags. And those are the flag of Russia. And I said, that's interesting. And so we went even closer to the second group, a much smaller group. And they had blue and yellow flags. And they represented the country of Ukraine. And I knew right away what it was all about. Because I happened to go there at a time that there was an international crisis called the Crimean Crisis. And Russia is this huge country that spreads from Europe to Asia. And under the country of Russia is the country of Ukraine. And they aren't always friends. And they're not friends now. And what they're unhappy about is who controls Crimea. And Crimea is a small peninsula on the Black Sea that is touched by both of them. And it is a territory. So sometimes it belongs to Ukraine, sometimes it belongs to Russia. And at this time, before this crisis occurred, belonged to Ukraine. And Russia decided, with the announcement that Putin gave, that it was time to reclaim the territory of Crimea. And it's a tiny little peninsula, but it is on the Black Sea. And Russia has their military naval might there. And it's very important to them that not only they have that naval might, but it's protected by having the Russians control that territory. So after this experience in the protesters, and I had tremendous admiration for the hundreds or so that stood up. They're in Russia and they're protesting that Russia is talking about taking this territory. So the next day, on Sunday, March 16th, I flew from Moscow to Izhev. And Izhev is a city that is 200 miles southwest of Moscow. And that was my final destination. And I was there because I was invited to go there as a lecturer to talk to the law classes there. And so Izhev is as different from Moscow as it possibly could be. It's an older city, has about 500,000 people. But its crown jewel is their state university, and it's called Udmurt State University, and that's where I was going to be the guest lecturer. So the next day, March 17th, I was so excited. I've been waiting and waiting to be able to go into classes and visit with the students and visit with the teachers. And that's what I did for the next 5 days. And it was a wonderful experience. And what I would do is go in the morning to the campus, and different teachers would invite me to come into their class. And I would say to them, is there something you want me to talk about? And they said, whatever you want to do. And I said, what I really want to do is dialogue with the students and answer any questions that they have. And so that's what I did. And it was like American students, when you're new and people don't know you, they're very reticent to ask you questions. And I said, any questions you have, we can visit about. And so there would be the formal academic questions that would usually start, like, could you tell us the difference between a U.S. senator and a U.S. representative? So I would answer that question. And then it would be, we don't quite understand checks and balances. Could you explain that to us? And I would answer that. And after a while, you'd get into what the real questions were. And the real questions were, explain the educational system there and how it compared to ours. And how many of your students actually go on to higher education? And then you would get the question that they were really wanting to ask, which was, and what's the favorite food of college students? And my favorite question over this 5 days was a student that was brave enough to say, I just don't understand why you Americans don't like your President Obama. And I thought, very insightful question. And I talked about democracy and how we express ourselves very freely. So that went on for 5 days, and in between times of going to classes, I would visit with the teachers. And the teachers weren't quite as polite as the students about pinning me to the wall like the teachers very quickly did, and I liked that dialogue that we would have. And only very few students asked me about the Crimean situation, and that surprised me. And it would be like me, right after we won the World Series, not talking about the marvelous things that the Royals had accomplished that year. And the students occasionally would bring up the Crimean situation, and I would talk about it, and I would say to them, I don't understand your history and culture to know why this is so important to reclaim this area. And that was always the word that they used. Mother Russia is reclaiming our property. And it was never, we're taking it, we're annexing it, we are reclaiming what belongs to us. But the teachers were not quite as gentle with me, and they would right away throw me against the wall and say, so your president doesn't like that we're talking about reclaiming our property. And we don't understand that, and we don't understand why you don't understand us. And I would say, explain to me your history and your culture so I can understand it better. And when they would finally push me, I would say, here's the bottom line, and that is that I have some concern about the slippery slope. And that is, you reclaim this property, then what stops you from reclaiming other property, like the whole country of Ukraine? And so what I did was it reminded me of two ships going in the night, and that I was here and they were there, and we were parallel, and we never quite met each other. But we didn't crash into each other. We were respectful. And hopefully someday we can turn and go forward. What I learned from this wonderful experience of being there for 10 days was that we are very much alike in many ways. And I will return to Russia someday, and I hope it's soon. And they have invited me back a number of times. And I will go back not only as a colleague, but as a dear friend. Thank you.
Thank you.